Here's something no one in the personal finance space will tell you. The money comes second. It always has, before the investment account, before the business, before the first five-figure month or the paid-off mortgage or the retirement fund that finally starts to look real. Something else happens, something quieter, something most women skip right over because it doesn't look like progress. It doesn't feel like building. It feels more like losing. The identity shifts. And if you don't understand what that shift is, why it has to happen, and what it actually looks like in your daily life, you will keep doing all the right financial things and wonder why nothing changes. This video is going to show you exactly what that shift involves, why women specifically struggle with it more than anyone else, and how to know when yours is already beginning. Let's start with the number that explains everything. In a 2022 study on financial behavior and self-concept, researchers found that women who described themselves as not really a money person were 68% less likely to invest, even when they had the capital, the knowledge, and the stated desire to do so. 68%. Not because of access, not because of information, because of identity. They didn't see themselves as the kind of woman who does that. This is the root of everything, not the wrong investment strategy, not the wrong budgeting app, not the wrong financial advisor, the wrong self-concept. And until that changes, all the tactics in the world sit on top of a foundation that was never built for wealth. Here is what the research and the lived experience of thousands of women tells us about who gets wealthy and who doesn't. It is not the smartest woman in the room. It is not the woman who works the hardest. It is almost never the most qualified, the most educated, or the most disciplined, at least not alone. The woman who builds real, lasting wealth is the one who, at some point, decided she was the kind of person who does. That's it. That's the whole thing. She stopped asking whether she was allowed to want this. She stopped waiting to feel ready. She stopped explaining her financial ambitions in small, apologetic language so no one would think she was greedy or arrogant or too much. She made a decision not about money, but about herself. And the money followed. This is not motivation talk. This is not manifestation. This is behavioral psychology. Identity drives behavior. Behavior drives results. You cannot sustainably act like a wealthy woman while believing at your core that wealthy women are other people. So what exactly is the old identity? What are we actually shifting away from? This is where it gets uncomfortable, because the old identity isn't bad. It's not something you chose carelessly. In most cases, it was installed in you by people who loved you, by mothers, grandmothers, teachers, churches, and cultures that genuinely believed they were preparing you for the world. The old identity sounds like this. Money is complicated and I'm not good with it. I shouldn't want too much, that's selfish. It's better to give than to receive. Be grateful for what you have. Don't talk about money, it's impolite. Rich people are lucky or they stepped on people to get there. I'm not the type who's good with numbers. None of these were presented to you as limitations. They were presented as virtues. Humility, gratitude, generosity, modesty, and they are virtues in the right context. But somewhere along the way, they became financial ceilings. The woman who was raised to be grateful struggles to want more. The woman raised to be generous struggles to keep anything for herself. The woman raised not to talk about money struggles to negotiate her salary, price her services, or ask what she is worth. The virtues became the trap. And here is why this is harder for women than for men. Not to make this a gender grievance, but to name what is actually true, because if you don't name it, you can't change it. Men are not taught that financial ambition is a character flaw. They are not congratulated for being selfless with money. They are not culturally rewarded for undercharging, oversharing their resources, or diminishing their income in polite company. Boys are handed toy tool kits and chemistry sets. They are told to compete. They are told to win. They are told that more is better. Girls are handed baby dolls and tea sets. They are taught to nurture, to share, to make everyone comfortable. And these are beautiful qualities, but they are not the qualities that build wealth without deliberate unlearning. By the time the average woman reaches 30, 40, or 50, she has been culturally conditioned for decades to be a spectacular giver and a deeply uncomfortable receiver. And wealth, at its most fundamental level, requires the ability to receive, to accumulate, to hold, to say, "This is mine and I am keeping it, growing it, and protecting it." That is not greediness. That is financial maturity. but it requires a full identity renegotiation for most women to get there. Let's talk about what the shift actually looks like, because this is not a dramatic moment. It doesn't arrive like a lightning bolt during a motivational seminar. The identity shift that precedes wealth is usually quiet, small, and frankly unsettling. It looks like pausing before you say yes to lending money to a family member who has never repaid you and realizing you have a choice. It looks like setting a price for your services, sitting with the discomfort of it feeling too high and charging it anyway. It looks like someone complimenting your new car or your business success, and instead of saying, "Oh, it's nothing really, I just got lucky," you say, simply, "Thank you," and let it land. It looks like opening a brokerage account and not feeling like a fraud. Like someone who belongs there. Like this is a completely normal thing for a woman like you to do. It looks like having a financial goal that is entirely for yourself, not for the kids' college fund, not for the family holiday, not to help your sister through a hard time, something that is purely, unapologetically yours, and not feeling guilty about that. None of these moments feel like building wealth. They feel like learning to stand differently, like releasing a breath you didn't know you were holding. But this is the work, and every woman who has gone from financial stress to financial freedom has had to do it. There is a concept in psychology called self-concept consistency. The research is clear. Humans unconsciously self-sabotage to remain consistent with who they believe they are. This is why a woman can read every personal finance book ever written, understand compound interest perfectly, know exactly what she should be doing, and still not do it. Because doing it would make her someone she hasn't given herself permission to become yet. She buys the course and never finishes it. She starts the budget and abandons it in week 3. She negotiates for a raise, gets it, and then immediately finds ways to spend it on others. She gets one good month in her business and then, inexplicably, shrinks. This is not laziness. This is not weakness. This is the immune system of an old identity fighting to stay alive. And the only way through it is not willpower. It is a new story about who you are. So how do you build the new identity? How does the shift actually happen? There are 3 mechanisms. Each one matters. None of them are optional. The first is evidence accumulation. Your brain builds identity from proof. If you want to become a woman who is good with money, you need to give your brain small, consistent pieces of evidence that that is who you are. Not a financial transformation, not a 6-figure launch. Small things. You track your spending for 1 week. You open the investment account you've been delaying. You have the honest money conversation with your partner that you've been avoiding for 2 years. You say no to the expense that was going to set you back. Each of these actions is a vote for the new identity. 1 vote doesn't win an election, but 1,000 small votes over months, and your brain begins to update the file. It begins to say, this is who she is now. The second mechanism is language. The words you use about yourself and money are not neutral, they are programming. I'm terrible with money is not an observation. It is an instruction to your behavior. The moment you catch that sentence coming out of your mouth, you interrupt it, not with false affirmations, with accurate reframing. You say, I am learning to manage money better. You say, I am becoming someone who invests. You say, I used to find this hard, and now I am figuring it out. The language does not have to be confident, it only has to be directional. The third mechanism is community. You will not sustainably outgrow an identity held in place by every relationship around you. If every woman in your closest circle believes that wanting wealth is selfish, you will unconsciously contract to fit that belief, no matter how much you intellectually disagree. This is not a criticism of the people you love. It is simply how social identity works. You need at least one space, one group, one mentor, one community, where financial ambition in women is normal. Where the conversation is not about whether you should want this, but about how you are going to build it. Here is what most financial content gets catastrophically wrong. It treats the money as the problem. It hands you a budget template and says, fix this. It sells you a course on index funds and says, now you're equipped. And you are equipped financially. But you leave the video or the seminar carrying the same internal story about who you are, what you deserve, what women like you realistically achieve. And that story quietly undoes everything the tactics try to build. The tactics are not wrong. Learning to invest is essential. Understanding compound interest is non-negotiable. Building an emergency fund matters enormously. But all of that information lands differently when you know, at a bone-deep level, that you are a woman who builds wealth. Not a woman who is trying to get better with money, not a woman who hopes this finally works. A woman who builds wealth. That's not arrogance. That's the prerequisite. Let's talk about the specific moment the shift begins, because there usually is a specific moment, or if not a single moment, a particular period, a season of life that cracks the old identity open. For some women, it is a divorce. The financial reality of suddenly being alone with a joint account that has your name on it and a standard of living you weren't the one managing. That moment of reckoning is brutal, but it is also clarifying. Many of the most financially powerful women built everything after that crucible. For others, it is a health scare, their own or someone they love. And the sudden, visceral understanding that time is not unlimited. That the plan they keep meaning to start is not going to start itself. That the retirement they imagined is either getting built now or it is not getting built. For others, it is simpler and quieter than that. It's a daughter who asks a question, a niece who is watching. A conversation with a friend that makes you realize you have been performing modesty about money for so long you don't actually know what you believe about your own potential. Whatever the trigger, the pattern is the same. The old story cracks. Something gets in. And the woman on the other side of that crack is not guaranteed to build wealth. But she is, for the first time, open to becoming someone who does. One final thing, and this is the part that nobody says because it is uncomfortable. Building wealth will change your relationships. It will change how some people see you and how you see yourself. There will be family members who feel threatened by your financial growth. Friends who subtly distance themselves as your circumstances change. People who call you selfish for having boundaries with your money or ambitious in a tone that was meant as an insult. This is not a reason to stop. This is the tax. This is what it costs to stop shrinking yourself financially for the comfort of people who weren't going to come with you anyway. Not all of them, but some of them. And you need to decide in advance whether you are willing to pay it. Because if you are not prepared for it, the first piece of friction will feel like a sign that you've done something wrong. And you will retreat. You haven't done anything wrong. You are simply in the middle of the shift. The discomfort you feel is not the door closing. It is the door opening. It just happens to be heavy. The woman you are becoming does not apologize for wanting this. She does not explain it in safe, diminished language so no one gets uncomfortable. She holds the goal, she does the work, she tolerates the discomfort of growth, and she does not confuse other people's ceilings for her own. That is the identity that precedes wealth, not perfect financial knowledge, not a flawless credit score. A decision made privately and completely that she is the kind of woman who builds it. Make that decision. The money comes second.